This is a DMB Society podcast.
I got a sister named Jane.
And this is the pod that Jane likes.
Welcome back to the pod that Jane likes. This is episode 98. I am your host, Jeanette. And before I welcome back my special friends here, I want to let you know that if this is your first time listening, welcome. We are the pod that Jane likes, and we like to discuss everything going on in the world of DMB. If you aren't already, please go ahead and follow us on all of our social media platforms. You can simply do a search for Pod That Jane Likes on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, I really think you guys should head over there and give our page a like and subscribe. We are going to be traveling a lot this summer with the band, and we'll have all kinds of goodies for you. And also, if you haven't checked it out yet, I highly recommend you check out our last episode where we welcomed Clay Cook of Zach Brown Band. We had some great discussions with him, anywhere from ZBB opening for DMB in 2010, how Clay, John Mayer, and Rashawn Ross went to college together, or about his connection to our beloved venue, the Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion in Guilford. But also, you can check us out at podthatjanelikes.com, where you can find all of these links. And if you are so inclined to do so, it helps us out tremendously when people leave reviews. So speaking of, I want to read you a review from one of our favorite listeners. This one comes from a regular listener of ours, Kumi, and it's titled Goated DMB Podcasting. There are tons of different options when it comes to podcasts, and several when it comes to Dave Matthews Band podcasts. But the pod that Jane likes truly separates itself from the pack. There is such a diversity and variety of opinion present in the pod. No one wants to listen to an echo chamber with two people just agreeing with each other. With this podcast, you are definitely getting a bunch of different views in each episode. Sean, Trisha, Jeanette, and Matt all have unique and different takes, and that is what makes this podcast so special. By the end of your first episode, you will be hooked, and you will have a personality or two you agree with more than the others. Every episode is unique and filled with exactly what a nerdy DMB fan wants to hear more about. There are episodes with album breakdowns and some with setlist breakdowns and stats, some previewing tours or reviewing performances during certain eras of DMB, and there are several episodes in which we hear about which experiences our DMB fan must-dos. All of these are engaging discussions that leave you wanting to chime in with your opinion. We truly get an insight into what DMB culture is all about with each episode, and if you're a DMB fan, you'll relate to a lot of experiences we hear about. You also may be inspired to travel or undergo more DMB experiences, like I was after Deer Creek won the Best Lawn Award on the pod. I can't recommend this pod enough. 10 out of 10 would subscribe. Thank you so much, Kumi.
Can we say that like this review is goated also? Like this
Yeah.
is the goat
We
of
absolutely
all podcast
can.
reviews. I mean, so in depth, so awesome, so great to
Right.
hear. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
There's
And a really great dude. 10 out of 10.
Yes,
Really
10
great.
Kumi, 10 out of 10. What I really love most about that review is him saying how he likes to chime in, like he's in the room with us. That's one of my favorite reviews ever, is when people say like they talk back to us, like they're in the room with us. I love that.
Yep.
That's the goal.
Me too.
So without further ado, let me welcome back my friends from New Orleans. I have missed you so, and I was back home just watching from afar as you guys had the most epic weekend ever. Are your bellies and hearts full?
Oh, yeah.
So full.
Y'all, I can't even, I don't even know where to start. We had such a great time. It was so great to introduce Sean and Trisha to a city that means so much to me, a city that means so much to Jeanette. And I really think that after this weekend, it was abundantly clear that this city means a lot to Dave Matthews Band. Not only Dave, but the rest of the band too. It was just so awesome to hear about all of the happenings in and around the fest, but also the after shows, and where's Dave going to show up tonight, and where's Jeff, like how many shows did Jeff play, and all of that stuff. So it was there was great DMB stuff, but then as I said, it was also great to be there with Sean and Trisha, and kind of show them around a little bit. And we had a lot of great stories to come out of the weekend.
It was so cool to, we recorded that Jazz Fest episode, and Matt talked a lot about things that did not make sense to me at the time. And it was fun to like see everything come to life, that whole episode come to life as I was experiencing it myself. And I had wondered why he was talking about food so much. And then now I get like the food is almost bigger than the music.
Right. Now you get it.
Yeah. And if you've seen DMB at a festival, and DMB over the course of their history has played a lot of festivals, they play a handful of them every year. This is so different. It is a festival. The actual DMB performance is, of course, it takes place at a festival. Jazz Fest is a festival, but it is so much more than that. It's the city. It's everything that's happening at the fairgrounds and away from the fairgrounds. It's music that seemingly starts, mid-afternoon and lasts until 2, 3, 4 a.m. every night. You have no idea who's going to pop up at any given time. So we're going to get into all of that, but just kind of Jazz Fest in a nutshell, it's so much more than what was taking place for those couple days on the fairgrounds themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm only 10% jealous and 90% happy for you. And I do have so many questions, and John just alluded to that. We will talk about this a little bit later. But right now we have to get into the opener, and so many things have actually happened since then. So let's get into it, guys. Let's get into the opener. Okay, so we're going to jump forward a little bit here to this past weekend. So this past Friday, David himself did a solo show in Houston. This was a pretty unique situation. Tickets were only available to Wells Fargo credit card holders, and the cost was about $100, which is quite a steal compared to what a full band ticket cost this summer. It was a very small venue in Houston, Texas called the White Oak Music Hall, which holds approximately 1,200 people. And Dave performed a full show, 25 songs. Trisha, what have you been hearing? We do know a few people that were in attendance at the show. What have you been hearing from fans that were on the ground?
Yeah. First, I'll give a big thank you to Megan and Jamie and Steven for their on the ground play-by-plays throughout that night. So, at first there was a little bit of controversy around this, a Dave playing a corporate show, but Wells Fargo, Dave said he came out immediately and said with their generosity, it's going to allow him to plant 500,000 trees.
That's a lot of trees.
A lot of trees. So that's very exciting. You wonder like what the motive is for Dave to do these events. Well, 500,000 trees is the motive, and that's super.
Plant 500,000 trees, and I will show up and play 25 songs.
Yeah. That sounds about right. And so, it looked like a beautiful event, small venue, like you said, Jeanette. They had a show poster, which I don't know if this is the first Dave Matthews solo poster that ever existed, but they had a show poster, and it was free to everybody, which is awesome. And then autograph Wells Fargo credit card holders, which is like their special credit card, got signed versions of the poster.
Wow.
Yeah. And they had the posters kind of hanging all over, like sort of as decor. So it looked just really cool. When he first came out, he did sound a tad sick, but our people on the ground told us that he shared that he was actually really hungover. He had a lot of whiskey the night before. He talked about New Orleans, and, generally the vibe that our fans on the ground and listeners told us was that he was really locked in and comfortable and free. And you could tell he was coming out of New Orleans really inspired. He sounded great. And he was so comfortable in front of everybody that he debuted a new song, which we can all talk about too.
If we must.
Okay, and next subject. No,
anybody got anything to say about that? No.
Well, you go first, Matt. Actually,
I was going to say,
take a stab.
I think the general consensus of this new song, I think between the four of us and our group texting, was that this song might not have been ready for prime time.
Mm-hmm.
The lyrics were kind of a little bit like I don't know if they had been fully fleshed out. Yeah, Dave has always been notorious over the years for for just doing that in
Yeah.
a lot of cases. I
Making
remember
shit
there
up
was a
on the whim.
story. There was a story from a long time ago, and I forget. You'll have to forgive me. I forget who it was that Dave took it to. It might have been Emmylou Harris, but he had written Bartender, and he brought it to. I don't forget if it was Emmylou or somebody else. It was around that time he played in Austin City Limits. Like it was like a round table, not a round table, like a songwriter round table, and they all were just playing some of their new songs. This is like back in the early 2000s, and he played Bartender for somebody, and they were like, "Oh, that's good, but like, let me know when it's done." And it was done. And he was
Wow.
just like he hadn't finished it yet, and so this has been happening as long as the world has been turning with Dave. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it becomes. I thought the music itself, the tune of the music, I thought was, had some potential.
Yeah, I agree.
But the lyrics didn't really do it for me from the jump.
I think there's some irony to the lyrics, which is encouraging. There's a lot of well-written DMB songs that kind of have these ironic themes, and that I thought landed a little bit. I don't think Matt's wrong, though. I think a lot of people kind of had this same idea that this is probably not something that is complete. Maybe more than anything, it's just kind of a thought and something Dave has been playing with. We don't know for how long. One thing that is really noteworthy about this is when the show was complete and then a couple of people started to get their hands on set lists from this performance, it's not on the set list.
Mm-hmm.
So this was
that's
something that,
interesting.
yeah, it was really kind of thrown in there, presumably last minute, but not to the point where it was on a set list that it led people to wonder what the official name of the song was. And it wasn't until the band actually took to their social media accounts and posted the set list that we actually got confirmation on the name of the song. So really interesting stuff. I don't know if this is something that is going to kind of continue to be flushed out. Is it simply an idea that is in the works? Is this something that has been planned out for quite some time? I tend to go with the notion that this is something that is still in the works, both musically and lyrically. I do think, regardless of what ends up happening with this song, if you've been a fan of this band for a long time, and Matt kind of alluded to this, this is something that has happened over the history of the band. And it's really fun to be able to go back and look at the early days of something and then ultimately where it ends up. Whether or not this ends up being another one of those examples, time will tell. But it definitely came out of nowhere. It definitely had a lot of people chatting about it. But even after all of this time has passed, it's been days now since that performance has took place. It's hard to get a feel for what people thought of the performance or thought of the song. The performance was good, but what people thought about the song, I think, is still a little bit up in the air. And I think a lot of that has to do with what ultimately ends up happening to this piece of music. Is it something that will evolve, or is it a Plastic Girl scenario where it poof disappears and just kind of becomes a DMB lore in some ways?
Right.
I mean, is there confusion around what people thought?
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair. I think it's just kind of.
I'm kidding. It's
maybe,
okay. I'm
maybe
kidding.
the thoughts are generic. Is that kind of a?
I mean, I'm
a better
conflicted.
way to
On
look
one
at it?
hand, I heard it and I'm like, I don't need to hear that again. But then on the other hand, Jamie on the ground said it kind of felt like he was making it up as he went. And what's cool about that is I want him to be out there riffing. I don't want him to be so prescripted all of the time.
Yes, two-step would like a word.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's one thing I'll say.
I didn't even get that.
I just two-step.
A nerdy
intro.
joke.
Two-step is a
two-step now has the
written
time
song.
bomb intro. Dave
Yeah.
used to riff on the intro forever
Yeah.
ago, and then he has not riffed on it since I forget when. But since he's gone to the time bomb intro, it's always that.
Okay, so hashtag bring back the two-step riff. Got it.
Right. See Central
Yeah,
Park.
Okay.
Bring back the improv two-step intro.
We could
Okay.
legitimately have an entire episode just on our favorite two-step intros.
Yep, put that on the
we
list.
Can go on and on.
Yep.
Here's one more thing I do want to say about this new track. And I do think a lot of people would agree with this. I am glad that new things are in the works. I'm glad that Dave's writing.
True.
I'm glad that there's the potential for more music. regardless of what you thought about the last record, I think that most people would agree that there's a lot of really good writing on that last record. Some of it is translated really well. Some of it's still kind of a work in progress in a live setting. But I think a lot of people would agree with the fact that when they put out their last record, there was a lot of really good writing on it. And it was kind of my first knee-jerk reaction when the song was complete and I started to process it. I was just glad that the band is still producing new music, that we're still writing, that we still have everything is still fresh and new to some extent. And you sprinkle that in with, all of the things that people already love about this band. And that's kind of the perfect formula, right? It's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that. It's all these different genres. It's new things, old things. So from that angle, I'm happy.
Good. Well, people left happy. That's for sure. They were felt like that was a magical night in such a close setting, and Dave belting things like Bartender and 41, and he played A Pirate Looks at 40 as well, and a new song. I mean, I haven't heard bad things from anybody in that room.
And I mean, we've talked about this before. Getting to see Dave solo is a very rare occasion. It's probably a once in a lifetime thing for a lot of DMB fans. So it's special no matter how you look at it. No matter what he played, it's a special show because Dave doesn't do solo shows very often. So getting to see him by himself on stage, filling up a room like that is something that, you just don't see every day.
Right.
Well, okay, then that was Friday night. Sunday night, the band performs at the Lovin Life Festival, which was held. Lovin Life.
Lovin Life.
Lovin Life. Lovin Life Festival was held at First Ward Park in Charlotte, North Carolina. Trish or Sean, you have any statistics about this show? Anything you want to tell us?
Well, at least in terms of the festival, Charlotte is a city that DMB plays in somewhat regularly and for a long time. But this particular festival, this is the first time that DMB has taken part in the festival, and they were the headlining act of Sunday. So they took the Miller Lite stage and they were the headlining act of the night. Really interesting to see the difference in the crowd between what took place at Jazz Fest and what was taking place in Charlotte for Lovin Life. Very, very different music a collection of music fans, different parts of the DMB fan base. I'm sure there was some crossover people that made it to both of those shows. But I did, one of the takeaways that I had was, in general, a much younger fan demographic for this particular festival.
Yeah, to give some context to that, Teddy Swims came on before DMB. Teddy Swims has a single on Spotify that has 1.7 billion views. I think the most views DMB has on Spotify or listens was like 200 million of Crash, right? Which came out 20 years ago. So like, think about the crowd that's coming up for Teddy Swims, and either they leave or they stay for DMB. And I think that they stayed. And honestly, obviously we know a lot of people. I mean, I think I personally knew like 2 people in the audience. Like, I actually don't think it was heavily attended by DMB fans. Of course, DMB fans were there, but playing in front of a lot of new ears, that's for sure. Yeah. And so I think that impacts the set list, which was very standard. And I think that was a brilliant, smart move.
Sure.
Yeah. I think to some degree, you have to kind of put things into perspective too. Last year, DMB played a handful of festivals, and for a good percentage of those shows, we didn't get what most people would categorize as a standard DMB festival set. Fast forward to this year, we have their first festival of the year being Jazz Fest. I think by almost anyone's calculation, that was not a typical festival set that took place in New Orleans.
Right.
This was. What took place in Charlotte was a pretty standard DMB festival set. And I agree with Trisha. I think that it almost needed to be, right? Like, you wanted to have a handful of cover songs sprinkled in there so that people could, if they weren't super familiar with DMB, maybe they know what Sledgehammer is, or maybe they know what Word Up is because we got the second ever performance of Word Up. Maybe they leave singing Thank You as they ended the show with Thank You.
Right.
So I think you got the hits, right? You got Ants, you got Crash Into Me, you got So Much to Say, you got Gray Street. People seem to really be into You and Me. I think you got the songs that if you just know what you've heard on the radio from DMB, you probably knew one or two of those songs. You got a couple of the cover songs. I thought that a standard festival set is exactly what the moment called for.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, we also had a little treat come while you guys were at Jazz Fest. While you guys were at Jazz Fest, we had a little treat come. Our Live Tracks Volume 69 showed up on our doorsteps, which is last year's Guilford, one of Pod That Jane Likes top moments of 2024. Matt, I know you've listened. I'm still currently trying to find a CD player to listen to it on. Matt, I know that you have listened. Give us a little bit of scoop on that.
Well, it was great to have, obviously, a mastered, professional recording of this show. Listening to it back again, I haven't listened to it in a while. I got the taper pulls as soon as they were available. I listened to the show several times, and it was great. It was almost like listening to it with a new ear with this, and it's so good. Probably my favorite performance from this iteration of the band, period.
Wow.
There's like I just keep thinking about you just keep thinking about the set list, and I was like, I know it's good, and like the it's progressing track to track, and I'm like, oh man, like this is just so, everything hits perfectly, and I love it so much. And the one thing that I wanted to say beyond that, and I did listen for us screaming when Sugar Will started. I think I heard us, but I'm not sure.
We
but,
made
it was
yes.
made a scene.
we screamed pretty loud. The one thing that I wanted to say is that Dave, to me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd love to hear our listeners' thoughts on this once you listen to the live tracks. Dave, to me, felt extra emotional during this show in a way that I didn't realize when I was at the show and when I was listening to it separately. He uses the word love a lot, which, like, I know Dave says that all the time, like, but sometimes he'll come on and say, thank you so much, like, have a great night, get home safe, whatever. But he kept using the word love, like, specifically after Digging a Ditch later in the show. As soon as he plays the last note, he says, love y'all. And, then they go on to the next track, which is like, it's Digging a Ditch. It's not like it's like a song that, like,
right.
he would do that normally. Like, it's not ending the set. It's not, it's just, there was something about that. And then the way that he was addressing the crowd later on as well, after, some of the big songs, like Last Stop being the set closer, he sang a few things as they're playing the outro, which again is just so great to hear. And he's just, I'm just curious as to what you guys think once you listen to it, because I was, it opened my eyes in a different way than what I had heard before. It was, again, just the most emotional and raw that I think that I've felt from him in a long time. And so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I particularly don't remember that at all. And maybe we were just living in the moment and having the time of our lives, so we weren't in that headspace. But I can't wait to listen with a second ear.
Yeah,
and hear that.
You just have to go find a CD player.
Yeah,
right.
I'm sure I'll find.
Well, maybe we sourced a lot of love in that venue, and I say that because Guilford's known to like be the best venue, and maybe people were happy, and like even with a rain delay, it was still such a fire show, So I don't know.
And he had a belly full of lobster.
Right, like he was just happy.
That's sort of an inside joke if you've listened to episode 97 with Clay Cook. Once you hear that, you'll understand.
All right, guys. Well, let's get into what we've all been waiting for. Let's jam about Jazz Fest.
Let's go.
Okay, guys, I've been waiting to record this episode. You guys been back for a few days now. Jazz Fest is on my bucket list, and I just couldn't make it happen this year, but I was so happy that I was represented by the three of you while you were there. Let's get into it. Sean, can you give us some Jazz Fest statistics? You know how I love a DMB stat to set the table.
Absolutely. So this was DMB's 10th appearance at the fairgrounds in New Orleans for Jazz Fest. Their first Jazz Fest appearance came all the way back in 1996.
That's incredible.
It was a much shorter 10-song set for DMB. They were not the headlining act of their first ever Jazz Fest. They actually filled the 325 to 445 slot, and randomly opened that show up with Drive In, Drive Out. So that kind of grabbed me. I thought, wow, what a cool way to open your first ever Jazz Fest. But yeah, so they do have quite a long history at Jazz Fest. However, it has been a while. You've got to go all the way back to 2019 as the last time that the Dave Matthews Band made a Jazz Fest appearance. I will say one little asterisk, of the 10 appearances, one of them was a Dave and Tim appearance during the 2017 Dave and Tim year. Dave and Tim did Jazz Fest. So it's actually 9 full band performances if we want to get real technical. But the 10th appearance of DMB in one version or another. And I really thought I'm so excited to chat about the show with everybody because, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, not much of this was what people would classify as a traditional festival set. I thought they did such a great job of blending what a traditional set is with the fact that there were a lot of diehard DMB fans at a venue that has a good amount of DMB history in a city that has a lot of DMB history. Of course, they did an awful lot of recording for Big Whiskey and the Groogrux King there. You throw in the previous 9 Jazz Fest performances, and you had the makings of what ended up being a really special festival set.
Well, let me just say this, and I think that you guys get it now, but you have to realize that this being, what did you say, the 9th or 10th performance of full band, Sean, at Jazz Fest? I'll bet you there's a good chunk of people at Jazz Fest who have seen every one of those performances.
Right.
Because once you go to Jazz Fest and you're there and you understand it and you get it, you're like, I got to come back here. And you'll see what, when you walk into the fest. I think we walked in like a couple minutes after it opened, and already we had to be, I think it was like, I don't know how many people back from the front of the area where you can have chairs and stuff. We were probably like 25 rows back at that point. Yeah. Behind the soundboard, behind the two, the left and right stacks that most people in the back were getting their music from. And people are just there, like they're literally planting their flag that has been there for other Jazz Fests and sitting back and waiting around all day for all the performances, not just DMB. We got a couple of other really great bands that played on the same stage. But it's just, you can go back and listen to our previous Jazz Fest preview episode. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but New Orleans is such a special place, and Jazz Fest is a microcosm of the entire city. I mean, you can have a full New Orleans experience at Jazz Fest, and it is unlike any other festival in that way. It feels, I know, Sean, you said this to me when we were there, it really felt like a local, like you were still doing something local. I mean, all the food vendors are all local New Orleans people. There's no like, there's no real fried dough stand or like, hot dog stand. I mean, you're choosing between like Gambian food from West Africa and alligator sausage and fried oyster po' boys and soft shell crab po' boys and cassandale po' boys. Like, there's all this food that, like, the food in New Orleans is so special and so amazing, and it's the greatest food that I've ever eaten in my life. And you can get all of that food at Fest and really have that full, experience. And then you turn around and there's a second line parade happening behind you, and Mardi Gras Indians across the way. It's like, it is again, you could go there and have a full New Orleans experience. And I think that the reason that this set morphed into a non-traditional festival set is because, Dave realized that when he was writing the set list that, he needs to keep all of those things in mind and really, play some deep cuts for the people who traveled to go to Jazz Fest like us, and play the hits for the people who love to hear the hits, and then also put some other special surprises in there for us. So I thoroughly enjoyed the set, and was so happy that I went. And it was, if you listen to my last to our earlier episode, the only other time that I've seen DMB at Jazz Fest was in 2013, and it was the wettest I've ever been at a concert. Period. There was a little cloud of rain that popped over us for a split second that felt pretty good when the rain started to come down.
You mean this time there was?
This time,
Yeah.
Okay.
It quickly moved off, and we were relatively dry for the day.
So
Yep.
Trisha, paint me a little bit better of a picture of the day. You
Sure.
guys, I think Matt pointed out, you guys walked in, you got your spot. What other bands did you see? Did you walk around a bit? Like, give me more, paint me a picture.
Yeah, I'm going to paint you a picture of the whole week, the weekend, because we came in Thursday, and Thursday is, I believe, like the resident day for New Orleans. Like, they get cheaper tickets. That's for residents, and that's the first day of Jazz Fest. And so we went because Goose was playing that day, not on the main stage, but they were playing, and it was just like a chill. Like, it was the first day. It was quiet. It was for residents mostly. So you got to experience everything that Matt is talking about. It was such a nice festival. And I think Sean said something like, it's like being at your town fair, like a town fair. Like the culture was just so apparent there. And so I was like, oh man, this is awesome. But mind you, I just want to shout out a couple of listeners. You might know Alex as DMB Memes, and our friend Milt as well. They went every single day to Jazz Fest at 11, the minute the gates opened, all the way till it ended, and then went out at nights.
Hardcore.
I mean, that made me feel like maybe I actually didn't even go to Jazz Fest, because I was going for a specific band every time, and I only went Thursday and Sunday. I didn't go every single day. You can, but like I didn't, because it was a lot. I'll be honest. It was a lot when I first landed. I had a little bit of culture shock. It was a lot of horns and a lot of noises on Bourbon Street. It was a little bit too much, but
it takes a minute. It takes a minute to adjust.
It does take a minute, but there was a buzz in the air. It felt like, ooh, we're kind of trucking towards the headliner of the weekend. And what was cool about that is, like, we were hoping that maybe we would see a band member pop up at a show that was not Jazz Fest. And, we won the roulette because we went to see Dumpster Funk. And then next thing you know, Jeff's on stage, and you're like, this is awesome. Like, it was your first sighting of a band member. So that was just super cool leading into Sunday. And so finally, when we went Sunday, it was definitely more busy, but not too much. Like, it wasn't crazy. The lines weren't crazy. It was pretty chill. And we sat pretty far back, but what was cool about that experience, I don't know how I'm going to describe this. You're going to have to help me, but people put up flags, tall flags, short flags, medium flags. And those flags are like a Jazz Fest institutional thing. Like, I feel like it was very quintessential Jazz Fest, and we were like plopped right in the middle of them. And I can't describe to you, as a person that likes to be close to the stage and likes to see the band, like, it was magical. It was it was like, I would never take back that experience of being surrounded by those flags, as the sound was so great. Like, just hearing those songs with the flags, it was incredible.
Oh, it's like you're part of something bigger,
Yeah.
That's part of it. And I've never been really that close at any of, like, I like to, the way that it works is that you can't have a blanket or a chair in front of a certain spot. Like, a lot of festivals do that. And so a lot of people will go and put their stuff down and then just leave. We had a tarp thing in front of us that, like, somebody left at the beginning of the day and then never came back for. And that was wild to experience. We just sort of took it over and nobody ever came back. So that was kind of funny. But the other thing that I will say with Jazz Fest is, because everyone everyone's kind of a veteran, even if you just step in there and it's your first time. Like everybody is so respectful, and you would think that like amongst the festival of the amount of people that are there, that like going to the bathroom and grabbing drinks or grabbing food is going to take you forever. It really you can find your way back. You don't have to. I often get concert anxiety where like I have a drink and something else in my hand and I have to get back to my friends, and like everybody's there with their elbows out and not letting you come through. And there's none of that. Like people would probably take the food from you and say, "Oh, your people are up there. I'll walk up with you."
Yeah.
There was a guy behind us who, as soon as we sat down, he offered his chair that was covered for my 4-year-old son, and like my son just hung out in this guy's chair right after he sat down for a while. Because he was hot. And so, just people are so great. And Dave said something, he said, with the world being as crazy it is today, New Orleans gives me hope for, everything that's good about the world. And he's like, even if you don't agree with the person next to you, we can still dance together. And they started doing this like improv thing, which that was like my favorite thing that I took from the weekend. Was just it's all about that. There's so many, you will meet so many different kinds of people in New Orleans, so many characters. I can't even begin to tell you about all the types of characters that you'll meet down there, and it gives you hope for a lot of things.
One thing that's really cool, really unique about Jazz Fest, really unique about the city of New Orleans is it isn't any one thing. So if you're traveling, if New Orleans isn't your home, if it is, lucky you, because the city's incredible. But if you're traveling to get there, you get off the plane, you make your way down to New Orleans. And really from the moment that you get there, it is a smorgasbord of music everywhere you go. Every type of music is represented on Bourbon Street, on all of these side roads. There were shows that span the entire weekend from sunup to sundown, seemingly. Every type of music. Then fast forward to the festival, and if you go and take a look at what the first weekend was, seemingly every type of music was represented, from rap and hip hop to country to alternative to jam bands to all of the classic New Orleans artists that really you have to go to New Orleans to see. And everything in between. All of these acts were all there on the same fairgrounds. And I'll add that one of the really cool things about being a DMB fan in the middle of all of this, we've talked about this so many times before, and we all love the fact that this band that we love so much can't really be pigeonholed into any one genre of music. So here you have this city where all of these types of beautiful music are coming together. And this particular first weekend of Jazz Fest culminated with DMB, who on their own is this combination of so many different types of music and so many different types of musicians with different backgrounds. It just all kind of fit perfectly. And it was just such an incredible way to wrap up what Jazz Fest is. I know we're biased when it comes to this band, but in some ways it just felt like they are the perfect band to kind of wrap up what Jazz Fest and what New Orleans is.
I love that take.
Yeah.
I
All
love
of this
that.
is so good to hear. Being someone that has never been to Jazz Fest and has always wanted to go, I always have found it a little overwhelming. So like the second I have an excuse, not an excuse, but like, oh, I have something that weekend, I guess I'm not going to make it. It doesn't, because I do find it extremely overwhelming. It just seems like there's so many bands and there's so many stages and there's so many people. So hearing you guys say how easy it was and how pleasant it was and how enriched in culture it is so nice to hear. And like, if there anybody else who hasn't been, I hope that this conversation implores you to go next time. Maybe not even for Dave Matthews Band, but for another band that you enjoy, because I will be going. I have to go. It is, like I said, on my bucket list. It will happen. So hearing this stuff is like really, really great for someone who hasn't been there. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Can I get in for 1 sec, Jeanette?
Yeah.
And just one other takeaway that I had sort of forgotten about was it was so great to go for DMB. We were primed, we were locked in, we're on the biggest stage for DMB. But I wish that I had another day, and I highly recommend if you ever do go to Jazz Fest, go on a day where you are not necessarily going to see one particular band. You could go see one particular band, but maybe you don't care where you end up for their set. But I didn't get a chance really to wander around as much as I normally would and see other bands and check out the jazz tent and the blues tent and the gospel tent and the heritage stage and the Fado Do stage where it's all Zydeco music. I that was one thing that I really missed. And my recommendation again is if you're going to do Jazz Fest and you're going for like a DMB or Goose or whoever, definitely go for that band and enjoy yourself and do that. But make sure you go another day and just wander the fairgrounds and eat your face off and do some shopping and check out a band that you have no idea who they are. Just wander in somewhere and just watch some music because it's really great.
You're so right. That's such great advice because I definitely didn't do that. Like I didn't go into any of those tents. I went on the days for the specific band, so I miss. I didn't go to a lot of that.
Speaking of that, I do want to get back to the show for a minute. I have so many questions, guys. So let's get back to the show for a minute. I want to do a little bit of a round robin here, and I want each of your highlights of the Dave Matthews Band set list, like of that part of the show. I think Matt kind of touched a little bit on it when he said his moment was when Dave said the thing about being in New Orleans, but maybe everybody give me like their favorite highlight, as in like what song was played or what you felt while the band was on stage. Trisha, you go first.
Oh, good. I want to go first because I want to say You Never Know. You Never Know festival, like in the daytime with these vast blue skies. I did not have like tears streaming down my face at a festival on my bingo card, and yet here I was. Like I don't know what it was, but like they sounded incredible. The sound was so good. The flags were just swoosh. I don't know. It was so unexpected. We should talk about this a little bit more because I think it was probably all of our highlights.
Yeah, huge highlight for sure.
And even more specific, the song itself is absolute top of the DMB catalog for so many people. But the intro, that full Carter intro came back. And we, along with some friends, kind of racked our brains over and over as to how long it had been since Carter played that extended rim intro. And if you're unfamiliar with what we're talking about, if you haven't gone back and listened to the tape of this, I would recommend that you go and listen to some older versions of You Never Know. I think the Gorge is kind of the most accessible one and has this extended version, that extended intro that we're talking about. But you've got to go all the way back to July 26th of 2014 in Bristow, Virginia, for the last time that the song was played with this extended intro. So just a really cool moment. The song itself was so unexpected. You add on top of that the fact that it is a really cool song for whatever reason to hear in the daytime. And then you, on top of all of that, throw in this extended intro that is so rare and just fits the song so perfect and has this real nostalgic feel to it. Really, really cool moment in the show.
Sean, was this also your highlight, or do you have another one?
This was absolutely a highlight. I had several of them. And I don't know if this is taking the easy way out here, but I'm going to take Alligator Pie as my highlight, just because of the fact that it is such a, at least in my mind, it is a staple New Orleans song, right? If you listen to the story that it tells, if you take into account that this album had Big Whiskey and the Gru Crux King, that is, has such roots to New Orleans, there was something about being in New Orleans and hearing the story that's told in that song, and thinking about the fact that some of the tragedies of that song took place blocks maybe from where the show was taking place. It was so perfect for that setting. And it's really crazy to think that for a song that fits New Orleans so well, and a song that fits Jazz Fest so well, it's never been performed at Jazz Fest before. This is a song that debuted all the way back in 2009. DMB played, the full band played Jazz Fest in 2009, 2013, 2019. Alligator Pie never popped up. It's never been a song that was performed at any of those shows. So to hear it was just a really special moment. It's not to take anything away from that You Never Know, because that You Never Know was incredible. Even another thing I want to add to that You Never Know really quickly is, in addition to having that really unique extended intro that we were talking about, how about the fact that to date, it is the longest version of You Never Know ever performed.
Oh, interesting.
Out of nowhere, 8 minutes, 50 seconds exactly, longest ever recorded version
beautiful.
of You Never Know. So I'm not taking anything away from that incredible moment, but Alligator Pie was so much fun. It was,
and there you all were wearing your
perfect.
Yes, in our pod.
Exactly.
and, like,
Right.
shirts.
That's right.
And if you
Big
didn't see the
alligator pie on the
shirt, we
back.
have an alligator pie lyric on the back. There's 6 of us standing with these
Yep.
shirts on. And then we ran into some pod listeners, Scott, and he had a group of 3 people and they all had pod shirts on. And it was just like fun, like to hear that. Because we could have got Louisiana Bayou, you know, we didn't. We got
100%.
alligator pie.
100%. Good point. Matt, how about you?
Well, those are my top 2 highlights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick run through
number
everything else
3.
that I wanted to point out, because there were a couple of really interesting things that happened here that you wouldn't necessarily know about on paper. So the first thing that I want to touch on is the segues. This show was full of segues, and they were seemingly, at least to me, like very new. So for example, at the beginning of the show, there was the prelude intro to Ants, which was like, it was almost like Ants minor, like it almost sounded like they were going to go into Grace Is Gone, and then they went into Ants, which was very interesting. Then you have obviously So Much to Say, into Anyone Seen the Bridge, into the Too Much Fake, into Word Up,
Word
up.
like guilty pleasure songs, period, by the band Cameo. As soon as we got home, I put on YouTube and I put on the Cameo Word Up video, because if you've never seen Cameo performing Word Up in the music video, you have to go see it. It is wild. And all I could picture was DMB acting this out.
Well, let's talk about Word Up for a second, because it was new. Rashawn sounded awesome. He was
Rashawn
the lead
sounded
vocalist on that.
Yeah.
And it was weird. It was like he was kind of like singing, rapping, and the band goes into a jam at the end, and they sound awesome on that. Yeah, it was I wrote down in my notes, this is very cool. Like he added a cool.
That's so 80s of you, Trisha. This is so
I know.
cool. So then you have Word Up, Alligator Pie, and then you've got the Madman's Eyes intro. You have the Passion intro into Warehouse. Like every song felt like it was going into something else. And you had at one point when Dave says that thing about New Orleans, he starts like doing this thing, and then that goes into another song, and then you have You Never Know going into When the World Ends. And then at the end, we have the return, even though it feels like we've heard it a million times. We get the return of Thank You, which was brought in from Jimmy Thing. They sounded like they were going to go into Brick House, and then they went into Thank You, which, Sean, the last Thank You was 2014. Is that what we determined?
It was 2015, actually. Now, 2015. If there is, again, there's always some sort of an asterisk floating around there somewhere, and this is no different. There is a small asterisk, and the asterisk being that it was performed at the Gorge in 2021 during the alternate format show when COVID kind of wiped out half the band. But the last full DMB performance, you have got to wind the clock all the way back to September 11th, 2015, Mountain View, California.
Awesome. And then I think one of the coolest underrated things, again, that you would not know about on paper, and I'm surprised the Almanac has not even picked this up. Gray Street closed things out. It was a great version of Gray Street. And what I thought was so interesting is that, and I sang along during this part, and I think I was right next to Sean, and we both sort of did a double take. During the third verse, when Dave sings, I live on the corner of Gray Street, for the longest time now, it has been, I live on the corner of Gray Street, feels like the end of the world. And he clearly changed it back to at the end of the world, which I don't know when the last time that was. You probably have to go back before the Conan O'Brien truncation, right? Because the third verse comes back and it's and it brings that with it. And
Yep.
who knows when the last time was that it was totally played. So that was something that I really hope sticks around. I haven't seen any footage from the other night from Gray Street to check at Lovin Life to see if it stuck around for that, but I thought that was really awesome.
Yeah, and that's what it should be, right? I mean, it's you're on the intersections of Gray Street and the end of the world, right? So it was a really cool moment to have the song kind of brought all the way back. Like Matt mentioned, we had waited so long for that third verse to come back. This is a little bit different, at least in terms of how anxious people were. I don't know how many people were hanging on that lyric the way that Matt and I were, but I'll tell you what, when it came back to the way that it's supposed to be, the way that it's on the record, right? I live on the corner of Gray Street and the end of the world. It was a fun little moment, a fun little conclusion to that set.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, how about the biggest thing that you all talked about? It wasn't the biggest thing. We barely noticed because the band's so good, but no guests.
No guests.
Yep.
Good point.
Yeah,
we were thinking all kinds of guests were going to show up on that stage.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think if you would have said to us, or if we would have said in our Jazz Fest preview that, hey, DMB is going to get up there, there's going to be all kinds of incredible musicians floating around, you're not going to get a guest. I think that some people would have been taken back by that, maybe a little bit disappointed. But what DMB delivered in this Jazz Fest performance, from the longest version of You Never Know with an intro that has been so MIA, the debut of a new cover, a liberation in Thank You, Gray Street going back to the original completed final third verse. There's so much to talk about in this show that it almost gets lost in that. Right. It's almost like there was so much happening in this condensed DMB set. I hate to say that you almost didn't notice, but you kind of didn't notice.
You didn't.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Like our bets would have been on, of course, there's going to be guests.
Of course.
In New Orleans, because they love it and they have a lot of friends. And we know this
sure
because
do.
Mr. Jeff Coffin popped up with all his friends at about 80 different shows throughout the whole 4 days. We couldn't even keep track, honestly, of how many shows Jeff popped up at.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, we might not have had any guests on DMB's stage, but DMB sure did make their way around the city.
They sure did.
So I know that you had mentioned, Trisha, that you guys were at the Dumpster Funk show and Jeff came out. Jeff probably maybe has a bunch of clones because Jeff apparently showed up everywhere at everybody's show. But other people showed up at shows too. Do you guys want to give some examples of what was going on that weekend?
Well, to paint the picture of Jazz Fest after hours. So the one thing that's interesting to know about Jazz Fest is that it ends at 7 p.m. So everyone floods the streets back into New Orleans, and the night is young. You're not like at the end of the night here. You're sort of just at the beginning of the night. And I think that is what spawns a lot of this. And there are local bands. There are some versions of national bands that are playing all around the city. I mean, every club and theater is booked with anyone from Trombone Shorty to, just local New Orleans bands that, may have a small following, and you just never know who is going to show up at any of these locations because they're just in town and they may know someone from the band. So, that I would say it wasn't necessarily a surprise that Jeff showed up at the Dumpster Funk show, but I think it was a surprise as the weekend rolled on that he was showing up at everywhere and anywhere. And from what we heard and saw, he was running in somewhere and playing for 10 minutes and then dipping out to go to another show. I mean, he was just he was a man on a mission. Dave also showed up at a number of places, but was a little bit more calculated and regulated with his schedule versus Jeff, who was just boom, 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 boom everywhere.
Right. He was at the Maple Leaf. He played until 3 a.m. He was at the Trombone Shorty show. He played at Preservation Hall with Dave. Dave showed up at Preservation Hall to play one song, Fool in the Rain. Random. I don't know if he's ever popped up like that before. And we can get back to Dave pop-ups. And then Jeff and Rashawn played at Crawfish Festival, which was on that Monday after
Yep.
Jazz Fest as well. So lots of bouncing around.
Well, and then what's so funny is when all the shows were being populated, there was this one show on Wednesday, which is like smack dab in the middle of both weekends, where this just group of musicians who I love every single person who was on that stage, and like would just go to see if one of them was in my town, like Kraz or Tony Hall or Jennifer Hartswick or Ivan Neville, and they all put this band together called the Days Between Band. And I, for sure, if I was there, that would have been my ultimate priority, would have been to have been at the show if I was there when they were there. And who do you know just walks right out on stage to play two songs with the band. He did Sledgehammer, and then did actually an amazing version of The Maker with this band.
The great Jeff solo.
Unbelievable Jeff solo. If you haven't seen it, it might still be on Nugs, but go check out the performance. It was really moving. I thought it was one of the best versions of The Maker that I've heard in a long time, and that was at Tipitina's. And as I said, I for sure would have been there, not even knowing that Dave would have been there. That was like on my list. So really cool. So much amazing music. And I will say, if you have Nugs, all of this stuff is still on. Like literally, all of these shows are still on. I've been watching music like nonstop on Nugs because all of these shows have been broadcast. So really great stuff.
That's awesome, just to see a bunch of musicians, not only just any musicians, but musicians that you love, to all just come to these small venues and you not even knowing if they're going to be there or not. They just show up. I mean, that's like Jazz Fest in a nutshell to me. That's always what I've wanted, like that kind of stuff. Like, is it not disappointing that guests didn't show up at Dave Matthews Band's set, but you kind of expect that. So then to have them guest and other people's sets is something for sure. I want to go around the room and ask one more question that I think is super important to the city of New Orleans. I need the one thing that you all tried or that you all ate that you're still thinking about.
Oh,
Sean, you go first. You're last, Trisha. No, Sean, you go first.
It is so hard to narrow down. I feel
you could give me two. It's fine. It's fine.
New Orleans, in addition to what felt like the most incredible music in the world, all taking place over the course of, 5 to 10 square blocks. It also simultaneously felt like it was the best food in the entire country, all being produced in that same amount of space. So I think it's really hard for me to narrow it down. I will say I'm going to kind of take a cop out here. Not necessarily my favorite food item. I will say I thoroughly enjoyed seemingly every single morning being able to sit down with a different cup of coffee and a different New Orleans beignet and recapping the night before. It almost just kind of became like tradition for those few days there, where we'd find a new beignet cafe, and we would sit down and have some fried dough covered in sugar and a cup of coffee and just kind of rehash the night before, because it was just a lot to take in. It was like, I don't know, prior to the iPhone coming out, I don't know how people kept track of what was happening at Jazz Fest and in New Orleans without the Notes app, right? Because it's so much and it's so fast hitting. There's just a lot to take in. So I thoroughly enjoyed having an opportunity every morning to sit down with some great pastry and to just kind of recap everything that was happening and then kind of brace yourself for what was about to happen over the course of the next 12 or 15 hours.
Breakfast of champions.
That's right.
All right. Matt, what about you? I mean, you're not new to the city of New Orleans, but what did you specifically have this time that you can't stop thinking about?
Oh, well, it's all the greatest hits, Jeanette. It really is. I mean, like, there are some things there that I try to eat here. I've tried to make. I've tried to go to New Orleans restaurants. It's just
never
not
the same.
same.
Yeah.
I would say I'm gonna go with two things, because one I mentioned before, which was the fried oyster po' boy at Jazz Fest is like worth it. Like I could go into Jazz Fest, eat that sandwich, and leave, and I would still be very happy, without seeing any music whatsoever. But I'm also going to give a shout out to Morning Call, which was this place we went for lunch that had beignets and then just a couple of other things. And the red beans and rice there were really, really good. And I would like to eat that again in my life.
Greatest hits.
Greatest hits, red beans and rice.
Yeah.
I'm easy. Beignets, red beans and rice, and
fried oyster po' boy.
Any kind of fried seafood po' boy, but specifically fried oyster po' boy with lettuce, mayo, and just a little bit of hot sauce is just.
Yep. All right, Trisha,
I had it.
You're up. You're up.
Well, because of the peer pressure around trying alligator, I tried the alligator pie at Giacomo's, and I tried
It was the best
alligator. It wasn't good. And then the alligator sausage. But here's the thing. I think it was really mental. I think as soon as I put it in my mouth, I was thinking it was alligator, and I was like, I'm going to throw up. So I tried alligator sausage too. I thought it was greasier than it needed to be. And then in your head, you're like, well, this is greasy. That's because it's an alligator. Oh my God, it's a reptile, So like it was mental. I couldn't get over it.
It's going to chop my head off. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. So, but I won't say beignets because Sean already said it, but I am still thinking about charbroiled oysters.
Yes.
Yes.
Such a fail that I did not eat them every day.
All day, every day. Yeah.
Right. What a silly move to get a half dozen. I could have had
100.
2 full dozen. Yeah, those were so good.
Uh-huh.
I'm still thinking about a Pimm's.
Yes.
And we have to be specific about the Pimm's, right? Because if you listen to our New Orleans preview, not only did Matt talk about the fact that if you go, you have to have Pimm's, but he specifically said you have to go to the Napoleon House and you have to have one particular bartender make this drink, this New Orleans. I guess it's
Pimm's cup.
It's a Pimm's cup, yeah,
cup.
and essentially it's just a gin-based fruit. Really refreshing light punch. Is that
it's a liqueur. It's a gin-based liqueur is what Pimm's is. That's the actual bottle that you can go buy at a liquor store. And then the Napoleon House makes just the best one that there is. They use a little bit of sour mix. They use a little bit of soda. It's like, and
there's cucumbers, right?
Yeah, and cucumbers. And the Pimm's is very low ABV, so like you can just kind of sip on this thing, and it's just so refreshing and delicious. And we went back multiple times for multiple Pimm's.
We did.
It's so nice walking, and you're hot, and you need to feel refreshing little drink. Right. It was very good. And then at Giacomo's, which is definitely the best food.
Told ya.
That barbecue shrimp. You did. And I have to shout out again, like I said in the beginning, you were all mentioning this stuff that obviously didn't land on me in the moment because I've never been.
Right.
And I did everything. I did all the hits from that first episode.
I'm so happy.
We took your advice on many things. We thought about you all the time, Jeanette, while we were there. Definitely. I still think about that barbecue shrimp at Giacomo's for sure.
I bet you do.
And the jambalaya at the Napoleon House. Like I can go on and on. I could not believe it's not like you could miss. Like it's just the food is good everywhere. It's not like you have to go to this section and go to this restaurant and I need to look up reviews. It's like, it's literally everywhere.
There's no missing. It's always a hit, And sometimes what I love the most about the city is that every time I go, I discover something new to just put on my list of things I have to return to. And I that's what I love about it the most is that, and it's always some like off the beaten path dive bar that has like the greatest sandwich I've ever had. Like Al, my husband, has this sandwich at some random like bodega mart, and he's obsessed. It's called the Jazz, and he's obsessed with it, and he talks about it all the time. And it's like this like sandwich. It has shrimp on it, and it's like a po' boy, but it's not. And it's at this like legit a random mart. And every time we're there, he has to get a car to go take him to get this Jazz sandwich.
Wow.
So you never know what you're going to find. And,
you don't know. And you also don't know when you stumble out of these places. You just kind of stumble out into the road. In the case of Giacomo's, for example, you're stumbling out and then the Maple Leaf Bar is next door.
Right
and
there.
there's just
Jeff Coffin
unbelievable
shows up.
music coming out of these venues and these bars
Yeah.
at all times. It's this unbelievable, unreal fusion of music and food and culture, and it's just all happening all the time in this one place. It almost felt like it wasn't real. The city
It is.
felt
It's
like
a fairy
we
tale.
were-
It's a
yeah.
fairy tale. Yeah. Well, guys, I am so happy that we did this. I'm so happy that we recapped your weekend. I am on my phone right now looking up flights to New Orleans.
Can I just show
yeah.
one more thing to those of you who are watching on
Yes.
YouTube? I found this sticker in and it's backwards.
No,
But
it's not.
I found this sticker in a shop on my way out, and so
Oh.
this is the font that all of the signs, they're all handwritten at Jazz Fest. All the signs are handwritten, and so this is like the style that that person who does all the signs writes in. And so this I was like, I have to buy this, and
That's
now
awesome.
now that you guys have been there, you get it, which is great.
Yeah, if you're not watching on YouTube, you should be, because we're now on YouTube. The sticker that Matt was holding up reads, "I now know what it's like to miss New Orleans." And there's a very real you kind of have to get acclimated to non-New Orleans life after you leave New Orleans.
Yes.
You know, it takes a day or two to kind of break into the regiment of what the 9 to 5 grind is, and going to work and doing all that stuff post New Orleans. So
Mhm.
great sticker, incredible city. What an experience. If DMB is back at Jazz Fest, you've got to at least make the attempt to make it happen. Even if DMB is not there, it's just
you
an
just have to
unbelievable
go.
experience.
I think that, if you bid there once, you leave a little bit of yourself there, and you take a little bit of the city back home with you in your heart. It'll always be a part of you now that you've been there. I want to kind of make not a pact, but maybe a promise to each other right now, right here on the air, that, we do this series where we revisit each album that the band has recorded. And when it's time for Big Whiskey, I say the four of us go to New Orleans and record that episode there.
And recreate all of the publicity photos.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Obviously.
Yes.
Obviously.
Oh gosh.
What do we say?
We should do that for sure. We might have to do it live, because we have a lot of friends who went through a lot of post Jazz Fest depression too. And if they found out we were going, they'd be like, we are too.
Well, maybe we'll have to do a live.
Oh, it's a live one.
Live Big Whiskey revisit. Who knows? The possibilities are endless. But I think that we need to do that. Good old Piety Street.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
And
I love the idea.
I love the idea, and I love how you said you leave a piece of yourself there, because as I alluded to in the beginning, when I first landed, I thought it was almost too much for me. And then once I settled in, and I have in my notes in my phone that it happened during Mad Men's Eyes, that I was like, I love Jazz Fest. I love New Orleans. And I don't know why. I wasn't listening to the song. I was just looking around, and I was like, oh my God. And it just like flooded over me. And I had this moment of like, I think I love this place. But again, that was like after day 3. Like it took a little bit,
I get it.
And I
it's
do
very
feel
overstimulating.
Like it's overstimulating, but I definitely know what it means to miss it.
Good. Sure. Well, I'm glad you guys had the best time. Does anybody else have some final thoughts before we say goodbye?
Final thoughts. Well, we keep inching closer and closer as DMB plays these few festivals. We're inching closer and closer to the tour opening up a little bit later this month. So just really excited to kind of take that momentum. Dave talked about the fact that he was kind of riding that New Orleans momentum. I kind of feel that way too. It's kind of like we're riding that momentum into the start of this really exciting summer tour that takes up almost 40 dates over the course of the summer. So just really looking forward to that, and what could the summer tour bring? It's always exciting at the beginning to kind of have a clean slate and go into things with the anything's possible is at least how it kind of feels.
Absolutely. And I think our first stop will be Bethel, followed by Boston.
Sure will.
Calling. We'll all be making
followed by Syracuse.
We will be making appearances.
Yep.
At all of these shows.
Yep.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say we have a huge presence at the beginning of the tour with those 3 shows, and then it's only a few more before things really get rolling, and we'll be we'll be around.
We'll be everywhere.
Yeah, we will. And I just would love to end by thanking Matt for the hospitality in New Orleans. It really did make a difference to go with someone that knew everything that was going on. I just felt like there was a comfort there. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And thank you, to our friends Emily and Lindsay and Jordan and Heather and Milton, Karen and Alex, because that was kind of our crew that was like helping us all navigate what was a lot going on for 4 days. And so just a shout out to everybody that made it feel, I don't know, like a magical little Disneyland for DMB fans for 4 days. It's very cool.
Well, thank you guys for this wrap up on Jazz Fest. Until the tour starts. If you guys are listening to us on iTunes or Spotify or watching us on YouTube, don't forget to click the like and subscribe button. Make sure to follow us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We're on the mall. Just do a quick search, Pod That Jane Likes. And that's it for us. We'll see you on the road.
See you on the road.
Before you know it. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.